Well, hello and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Dwayne Butcher of Lean Frontiers and I will serve as your host today. I'm excited to bring to you today a short webinar on Toyota Kata facilitated by one of North America's most experienced Kata facilitators, Beth Carrington. Beth has held a number of executive leadership positions in personal care, furniture manufacturing, automotive industries, among others. And Beth, I believe that you have a Kata Skill Camp workshop coming up in December, so I'm hoping you might tell us a little bit about that as well. Throughout the presentation, if you have questions, if you would please submit those using the GoToWebinar toolbar, I will field those questions and ask them of Beth toward the end. It would be most helpful if you could submit those questions earlier rather than later to ensure that we can get to your specific questions. So for now, though, let me turn things over to Beth. Beth?
Thank you, Dwayne. I am going to touch on a bit about the Kata Skill Camp in December. I'll talk to that in detail towards the end of today's conversation. Where I'd like to start is just kind of an introduction, and so I'll begin. Hopefully you can all see my screen, and we are recording this, so if you want to capture it or share it with others, please feel free to do that. All right, so as Dwayne said, my name is Beth Carrington. I'm part of the W3 group. I'm one of the W3 group partners and a consultant. And I have been a Toyota Kata master coach for a few years. I was lucky enough to have met Mike Rother early on in his publication process of his book, and had an opportunity to learn from Mike at a local organization in western Michigan, and we met and practiced the Toyota Kata. And then I was lucky enough to take some time and kind of follow Mike around the world, or at least the United States, and learn and practice with him for a bit before the W3 group in about 2009 we started practicing within an organization, not just the routines, but actually honing our skills on how we help organizations deploy Toyota Kata. I have been a long-term lean practitioner and consultant, and as you can see, I'm placed right now up here in northern Michigan, buried in about 1.5 feet of snow already. So winter has hit hard and early this year. Let's see, W3 Group, real quick. We are a global consulting organization. Along with the traditional lean implementation support, W3 Group really specializes in training and coaching organizations in practicing the improvement kata, coaching kata, so those organizations can run on their own as soon as possible. And we were lucky enough to partner with Lean Frontiers to bring to the lean community the Kata Skill Camp. It's a 3-day intense workshop, really helping bring the practitioners one step closer to implementing a Kata connection. The dates are December 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. It's going to be held in Holly Springs, North Carolina, right just outside Raleigh-Durham area. And our host site is Novartis, a pharmaceutical company, vaccines, diagnostics. And they've been just gracious enough to open their doors to the public, allow us to come in and train people in the skill and the techniques of the improvement kata, coaching kata. So let's talk a little bit about what these routines are and where they came from. It's all based on a book by Mike Rother called Toyota Kata. And Mike really operationalized managing people for improvement, adaptiveness, and superior results. He spent some time studying Toyota, not the things you can see. He didn't study the typical lean tools or techniques, the things you can see when you go on a benchmarking trip, things like 5S and Andon or Hijunka, Kanban, flow racks, point of use inventory. That's the typical thing others study when they go to Toyota, but what Mike really studied was more of the things you can't see, the behaviors of managers and subordinates in their daily routines, utilizing tools and techniques when needed to eliminate obstacles, but really focusing in on those behaviors of managers and their subordinates. And what he uncovered was some really unique management routines, namely coaching and learning routines using an interconnected set of behaviors practiced frequently to create a predetermined mindset leading to a deliberate and sustainable culture within an organization. And in this particular case, Mike was really focusing in on the continuous improvement efforts, right? Those behaviors that organizations do to create whole new levels of performance. And one of the things that we've learned along the way is those behaviors are really closely connected with a couple of other key activities that go on within quote-unquote lean organizations. And just to touch on those real quickly, the first one is daily management, right? The process for how we manage our natural work groups. We also see policy deployment, the process for how we deploy annual goals and objectives to the workforce. Both of those elements are strongly connected to this continuous improvement, the process to engage our workforce in continuous improvement. And Mike's book really focused on this continuous improvement element, but it is all based on behaviors. So let's talk a little bit about what those behaviors are and what kind of skills we're talking about when we talk about continuous improvement. So this is where the Kata comes in, the Toyota Kata, specifically in this continuous improvement bubble. And what it has led to, what's Mike's studies and as the community at large learns more about Toyota Kata, it's really, I believe, leading to an evolution in lean and continuous improvement. The evolution is a shift from tools and technique implementation to more of an application of foundational skills. And I want to use Michelangelo as a painter. He was also a sculptor and a scientist, a few other things. But as a painter, I want to use him as kind of an analogy of what we're talking about when I talk about foundational skills. So Michelangelo, no one really taught him how to paint the Sistine Chapel, right? What he was taught were really the foundational skills of painting under the guidance of a master. Some of those foundational skills, when he began as an apprentice, it starts out pretty basic. They have to learn how to mix paint, create the color that would be used, the palette, right? How to build a brush. Couldn't just run down to the art supply store and pick up a brush. You have to learn how to build a brush, and there are many types for many different styles of painting. Had to learn how to prepare an easel, right? Again, you can't just run down and buy one. You have to actually create it. And then he began to practice actual painting under the guidance of a master. Right? Over decades, he practiced these foundational skills, like how to do shading or how to add perspective to a drawing or ultimately a painting. And those skills only came, with time. And under that master, he actually was able to develop the skill that allowed him to create his masterpieces, right? The Sistine Chapel being an example of that. The same case applies in soccer. So let's talk just for a second about soccer, right? A coach can't teach a player how to play a game of soccer, right? A coach teaches the foundational skills, right, required, the headbutting, the kicking, the goaling. Those foundational skills are what a coach focuses on. So as the player acquires the skill to make the right move in the game to lead the team to victory, that's a coach teaching the sport, right? And this is the same way that we can think about foundational skills required to drive continuous improvement. There are certain basic skills that can be taught, and it's that evolution, right, of lean and continuous improvement, going from tool and technique implementation base versus this evolution to the application of foundational skills. And in the continuous, in the lean community, you know, I think we, and I'm part of that community, having been a consultant since about 1999, we have been teaching tools and techniques, you know, it's kind of like trying to teach Michelangelo how to paint the Sistine Chapel, right? How to do 5S, how to do Hijunka, how to do Kanban. And I think we may have missed some of the foundational skills. And that's what we're evolving towards teaching these days, the foundational skills and how to apply them to improve our processes. So that brings me to these foundational improvement skills. Mike has operationalized the basic skills into 4 basic routines that are under one umbrella called the improvement kata. And those 4 routines begin with understanding our direction. Then we grasp our current condition as it relates to that direction, that long-term goal or objective we're striving to achieve. Once we know where we are, then we can establish a target condition, which is one step into our future beyond our threshold of knowledge of describing a pattern of work and outcome objectives on our way to that longer-term challenge, that longer-term direction. And then we begin the fun part, which is the iterative Pdca cycles. So let's delve in a little more deeply on each of these 4 routines. So starting with understand the direction. Right, this is, we need to gain an understanding of the organization's true north. You know, the long-term vision. Kind of, it's vague, it's far away, it's principle-based, may never get there, but it really is there to help set a direction for the organization and to be a decision maker as we proceed working on our processes, our value stream loops and our value streams, driving improvement. We know the direction we're going. Short of that, there is a challenge that is laid out within an organization at many levels, many aspects of an organization, right? We have to understand the challenge. This is an organization's strategic or annual goal or objectives. Many times these are multifaceted, very concrete, metric-based objectives, very time-based. Typically, you'll hear, you know, year-end or Q3 2014. We need to be, I should say, Q4 now, where you've moved on into Q4. But at the end of Q4 2014, we need to have this goal achieved, this objective achieved, or this breakthrough performance level, and it has to be in line with our true north, right? The hypothesis here is that if we achieve this challenge, we will have moved the organization closer to our vision. This is really a foundational piece around what policy deployment is all about, the process for how we deploy our annual goals and objectives out to the workplace. You can call this Hoshin-Connery, you can call it strategic planning, annual planning. It all falls under that same umbrella. But people in our organization really have to understand what that direction is. And that's where we begin the improvement kata. And what people have to learn how to do, and the only way you can learn this is through practicing, is to take an organizational challenge and parse it down to the process level. And this is really the link to the value stream map, as you were, right? How do we link an organizational level goal down into the process steps? And so learners have to understand and practice how to do that, so they get a grasp of where they need to take their process performance. Once we understand the direction and understand where we need to take a process, ultimately, our next step is to grasp our current condition as it relates to that challenge, right? So we grasp grasp the details of our current pattern of work. We study the variation in the existing pattern, and then we study performance results as outcomes from the existing patterns of work. So every pattern of work creates an existing, or let's say a design level performance. This is really a strong link to the daily management piece of the Kata connection. It's the process for how we manage our natural work groups, and in daily management embedded is visual tracking, outcome metrics tracked on daily management boards, visual factory, it's often called, shop floor management, it's often called, but we call it daily management. And a lot of times grasping our current condition leads us right to our daily management techniques and our daily management boards. Then we have the third routine of the improvement kata is to establish a performance target based on a new level of process metric consistency in alignment with our challenge, right? So we have that longer term challenge out there. It could be 3, 6 months out, a year out, or strategically 3 to 5 years out. We've grasped our current condition as it relates to that challenge. Now we establish our first target condition somewhere between where we are and where we're going. And part of that is not just metrics based, but it's define the desired pattern of work that will achieve those results. And in practice, typically we find target conditions are very challenging for new practitioners to define. These are not vague, ambiguous statements, but mathematically correct, measurable, time-based, desired patterns of work that you will next identify obstacles preventing you from achieving that target condition. And this is where we really begin the iterative process of the Pdca cycles. Once we have a target condition, once it's established, then we can really identify obstacles preventing us from achieving that target condition. And by identifying obstacles, and it really brings, I think, an aspect to this type of continuous improvement methodology, something that I refer to as purpose-driven. So once we have our list of obstacles, we choose one and only one, and then we experiment our way to overcome and eliminate the obstacle, right? We don't really experiment to achieve our target condition directly. We experiment to overcome and eliminate obstacles in our way to our established target condition. Again, this is what gives, in my opinion, the real purpose-driven continuous improvement. There are some things that you will leave undone. There are some things that you may recognize them as a problem. You may recognize them as what is typically referred to as muda or waste, but it doesn't necessarily mean you will eliminate that muda or that waste or that solve that problem if it's really not in your way to your target condition. And let's just talk a little bit more about this Pdca cycle. By the way, the first letter, the P, is for plan. Now this isn't the typical plan that at least I had been experiencing as I, let's say, finished up a Kaizen event and laid out a 30, 60, 90-day action plan, or I did a process improvement effort in a, say, an administrative support functional area where we laid out a desired future state for a current, for a process map, let's call it, a desired or future state process map. And then we made a plan of what we believed everything we'd need to do to get us to that new process, future state process map. In this scenario, in this improvement kata routine, our plan is really a design experiment. And it's a simple single factor experiment with a hypothesis that we would actually lay out the plan, lay out the hypothesis, answering the questions by making this change in my process. What do I expect to happen, and what do I expect to learn? And that's part of the plan process. Then what we do is that's the D part of PDCA. We execute the experiment. And we gather data when we do that. We observe very closely as we execute the do portion of PDCA, so that then we can check on our results. And this is where you actually compare what you expected to happen with what actually happened, and you either affirm or refute your hypothesis. And we hope in many of these cases that we actually refute our hypothesis. A refuted hypothesis is actually an opportunity for new learning. An affirmed hypothesis is simply affirming what we already know. By definition, that's not learning something new. What we want to do is get to refuted hypotheses, to actually learn something new, so then we can do the A part of PDCA, which is act on what we've learned. If it is affirmed, we can, our hypothesis is affirmed, we can act and incorporate that change, the results of our experiment into our future. Or if we refute our hypothesis, we can act on that and make our next hypothesis, design our next experiment to move us closer to eliminating the obstacles in our way to our target condition. So how do we learn these skills, right? Just like Michelangelo, we develop skills by practicing under the guidance of a master. In our world, that master is our boss. Our boss coaches us along the way. This is really a chain of command activity. It's not a staff-led activity. It's chain of command, where a natural process owner will be performing the improvement kata activities under the guidance of their manager, and by manager I mean anyone who's supervising someone. That could be from a team leader to a supervisor to a manager to a director to a vice president to a CEO. Anyone in that chain that has a subordinate is there to coach that subordinate in these tools and in these approaches of the improvement kata activities. So the role of the coach, or i.e. the manager, is to teach the improvement kata, teaching skills, coaching skills in the areas of understanding the direction, grasp the current condition, establish a target condition, and then stay in the corridor of the applying the scientific methodology behind this iterative PDCA cycles. And the coach actually uses a 5-category question card. It in of itself is a kata, or a routine, of how to teach a specific way of acting, to thus teach a specific way of doing. So the role of the coach is really about developing their learner, or the natural process owner, around these improvement kata skills. Yes, they're interested and are held accountable for obtaining improvement, but the coach is really interested in altering the thinking and acting of the learner, resulting in a new mindset. And every coach also needs a coach. We need to learn how to coach. We've been managers us, and we've been rewarded for very specific behaviors that are counterintuitive to developing our learners. So let me give you, an example. When I first started to become a manager, and I received the first business card with the title manager on the card, I thought, great, I finally get to make all the decisions. I believed that as a manager, that was my role, to make all the decisions, to develop solutions, and then just have my people execute my decisions, execute my solutions. And while we may have, following that methodology, obtained improvement, we didn't really focus, or I didn't really focus on developing my people's ability to develop their solutions. And so when a problem is encountered, I would go into my control and directive mode, make a decision, design a solution, go forth and implement. What I was lacking was, I believe, a really good second coach. A second coach that has a vested interest in developing my management skills and my skill set as a coach, right? So in this model, my manager is my second coach, and they're there with me when I teach my learners the improvement kata. And so my second coach, i.e. my boss, again, very chain of command, is teaching me how to coach, how to, drop my control and directive approach, go to a more Socratic approach, putting the development of my learners in front of the obtaining improvement. So different management model, and that's what we believe this really is. It's a way to manage our people and develop their skills to obtain continuous improvement results. And again, it's all linked to this kata connection, where we have the continuous improvement activity, the daily management activity, process for how we manage and develop our work groups. There's a very specific pattern or kata behavior around daily management, policy deployment, clearly how we deploy annual goals and objectives out to the workplace is an integral part of this connection of behaviors and this chain of command through the organization. And lastly, the process to engage the workforce in their continuous improvement efforts, right? And this is where Toyota Kata really comes to the forefront, offering up the foundational skills to enable our people to develop results and achieve results they never thought they could achieve in the past. Really tough challenges, developing solutions for problems they've never encountered in the past, innovation, solving their problems, overcoming their obstacles. And that brings me to the Kata Skill Camp. So what is a Kata Skill Camp? So there are three words, or one word repeated 3 times, that I would summarize the Kata Skill Camp. And it's practice, practice, practice. Over the course of 3 days, in this case, the participants are going to practice the 4 routines of the improvement kata. They're going to learn how to build a storyboard. They're going to learn how to really understand the direction of an organization and how to parse that down to their process challenge. They're going to grasp their current condition utilizing the mini routine called process analysis, the mini kata of grasping our current condition. They're going to create a target condition. You'll get great practice in creating target conditions. As I said earlier, the new practitioners find that very challenging, very difficult. Well, you'll get a chance to actually build a target condition for processes. And then we'll begin doing Pdca cycles, where our host site, in this case Novartis, has opened up their processes to allow us in to actually run experiments and learn from our experiments how to overcome obstacles on our way to our target condition. And then we'll practice building a storyboard. We'll actually practice the coaching kata, those 5 questions or categories of questions, I like to refer to them as, right, where we actually role play as a learner, we'll role play as a coach, and we'll role play as a second coach. And there are some second coaching routines that we'll practice, as well as coaching, as well as the improvement kata. So the 3 roles that we'll role play is the learner doing the routine of the improvement kata, the coach performing the coaching kata using the 5 category of question, and the second coach learning some routines on how to be an effective second coach, teaching a coach how to coach as the coach is teaching the improvement kata. And then we'll also talk a bit about how to deploy. How do we take these skills and deploy these in an organization? It's one thing to learn yourself how to do an improvement kata, the 4 routines. Learn yourself how to do the coaching kata. Learn yourself how to do the routines of second coaching. But then how do we deploy it across an organization that might have many, many departments and many, many levels of manager and subordinate, or in some cases multiple sites, right? We're not always in the same geographic location. So we'll talk and learn how to deploy within an organization. So here's what the agenda looks like. Day 1, we're going to spend some time reviewing the theory behind kata methodologies. Again, we're going to talk a little bit about the plasticity of the brain and our ability to develop new skills and how we go about developing new skills through deliberate and perfect practice. That's why we need a good coach in the room to help and our direction, right? Review an organization's vision, review and set a value stream and process challenges. So we have some challenges from our host site, and we'll learn how to parse those out into a process level challenge and what that could look like and feel like for the people in that process. Next, we grasp our current condition as it relates to that challenge set out by our host site, where we actually introduce the 5 routines of process analysis, and then we go practice it on a real process with real things happening, with real people working in the process, and with all of its variation and nuances. We'll actually go and practice in a real setting. Then we'll establish our target condition. We'll give, again, a burst of learning, and then we'll actually do some target condition exercises where we establish target conditions for the practice processes we're working on. We'll present and discuss and learn from each other what those target conditions look like and what they feel like and what makes an exceptional target condition and maybe some things that shouldn't be in a target condition. We'll come back for day 2. We'll review those target conditions from the prior day, and then we get right to our process after a little burst of learning about an introduction to Pdca iterative process. Then we'll hop out to the processes and actually design and define our first experiment. And then we exercise the coaching cycles, right? And we'll begin to practice Pdca at the process. We'll begin to practice coaching cycles. And on day 3, we focus on more coaching cycles, more Pdca, iterative steps, doing both the PDCA and the coaching cycles at the process. And then we'll end the day actually on day 3 with that how to deploy conversation. So here again is the Kata Skill Camp. We have this 3-day intensive workshop, getting one step closer to that Kata connection. December 2nd, 3rd, and 4th in Holly Springs, North Carolina, just outside of Raleigh, Durham. I'll be there as one of the instructors along with our Trevor Hopster. And again, this is in partnership with Lean Frontiers. And the host site we're lucky enough to have is Novartis. I also wanted to, before I end the conversation and open it up to your questions, I just wanted to touch briefly on the Kata Summit. Really exciting. It's taken the moniker of KataCon these days. It's going to be in Fort Lauderdale, February 18th and 19th. A great opportunity for people literally from around the world to come forward, share their stories, hear other people's stories, see real application of this improvement kata, coaching kata, in organizations from around the world, and just share more learning in Fort Lauderdale. And what a great time of year to go to Fort Lauderdale in February. So looking forward to the KataCon. So I am just wishing you all success in your kata deployments. And as I like to say, kata, kata, kata. And so thank you. I'm going to open it up to Q&A at this time, Dwayne. And let's see if we have some questions out there I can help answer for people.
So Beth, I'll just mention that I was at the AME conference last week, and I can firsthand attest to the fact that kata, kata, kata was kind of the buzz at the conference. So I like that. And Fort Lauderdale right now doesn't sound bad when you've got 18 inches of snow on the ground, right?
and more accumulating as we speak.
Well, good luck with that.
Yeah.
So we did have a few questions come in.
Okay.
One of them, it looks like this person is in a typical lean company, and they've not done anything with kata at this point. Do you have any tips for where they even get started?
Well, so on the roadmap of kata deployment, you really have to start at the beginning of the road. There's no, jumping in. I wish we could, just simply have you read a book and grasp this. The place to begin is really just in practicing. I would go to the either W3 website or the Toyota Kata homepage and download some of the great materials people have put out there. Mike Rother in particular has just this concept of open source. And so a lot of us share ideas with Mike. Mike consolidates those ideas, and he's created this wonderful handbook that you can download from his site, and it gives you some real tips and tools. So where you begin with that is find a couple of people you can begin to practice with. Take the handbook, go through the routines step by step. There's also a quick start guide that Mike has put together, and we used to teach quite frequently. You can jump in with that quick start guide, pick a process that's relatively easy to see, relatively quick cycle so you can do some cool PDCAs, and just begin practicing, right? That's where we all had to begin. That's where I had to begin. And it's going to feel very awkward at first, particularly if you don't have a coach. And that's, it's one of these catch-22s. We need a coach, but we don't have a coach. So some of the things that we try to do to overcome that catch-22 is there's a great Toyota Kata learning network on LinkedIn. One of my business partners, Jay Vandersweg, moderates that, and it's where practitioners can come forward and ask questions and, exchange ideas on how to practice their kata routines on some, challenging situations. So I guess start at the beginning. Start by, getting the handbook, reading that, and begin your own skill development. Once you know how it feels and how to do it, then you can, start to think, maybe I can begin to teach it. But first you have to know how to do it yourself. And and that's hard, I got to say one more thing, that's really hard for managers to do in organizations because they think they're coaches already. But we're teaching a very specific pattern of behavior here, and to be able to teach it, you have to be able to do it first. So start there. Long answer, but that's what I've got.
Yeah, thank you, Beth. I'd also reiterate the sharing nature of this community. As Lean Frontiers, we're familiar with drawing together communities, the Lean Accounting community, the TWI, the HR community, but I've honestly have never seen anything quite like this Kata community and the number of resources that are available for free for download. So I will include a couple of those links post this webinar and give you some resources to follow up on if you've not yet found those. So Beth, we had a couple of questions come in related to the concept of the second coach. Just a general question here, somebody asking if you could talk more about the role of the second coach and then what makes for a good second coach. And then let me add one other thing in here. How often does the second coach actually observe the first coach? This person is simply indicating that in a large organization, it seems like it would be difficult for a second coach to attend all the katas.
Right. Great questions. So the role of the second coach is really there to teach the, let me go back to my slide deck real quick. The second coach is really there to teach the primary coach how to be an effective coach, as opposed to a problem solver. Let me get to my slide. Excuse me. So that second coach is kind of the master's master, right? They're the expert coach. So a good second coach, let me answer that question first, is someone who has been a learner. And they've been a learner on multiple processes, right? Not just maybe one relatively simple process, but they've been out there on a couple of different processes. So they really know how to establish good target conditions through practice. They know how to do good iterative PDCAs. In other words, they've been practicing the improvement kata on multiple types of processes. A good second coach then has to learn how to be a good coach, right? To be able to teach something, you have to be able to do it. So they have to actually, a good second coach has to have been a coach. They've actually taught the improvement kata to their subordinates. They know how to understand the sense of direction and make sure that you have organizational alignment to those strategic and objective, strategic goals and objectives. So they've practiced as the coach. And again, the coach understands they have this twofold responsibility. One, the first responsibility is to develop the skill of their learner in overcoming obstacles, but they're also held accountable for results. Once somebody has been a good learner, a coach, now they're ready to be a second coach. And this second coach has at least competent coaching skill, and they have a vested interest in developing the management skill of the coach. So they come to coaching sessions and give some feedback, constructive feedback, to the coach on what could make that coach a better coach the next time they interact with their learner. Now, having said that, the second coach, when you're in skill development period where this coach is just learning how to become a coach, the second coach is there more often than not. But as this coach's skill advances up to competency levels, the second coach isn't there every coaching cycle. They're there, and it really depends on the cycle of the coaching sessions. And some, at the value stream level, some of these coaching cycles might not be taking place until, let's say, on a monthly basis. And so the second coach might be there every month. It could be coaching cycles are taking place on a daily basis. Then the coach could be there, the second coach could be there, let's say, once a week. So it really depends on two things: the frequency of the coaching kata and the skill development of the coach.
Okay, great. Well, Beth and to everyone else, I want to respect our stated end time here. And Beth, I don't recall if your email address was on one of your final slides there.
Oh, would you know?
If not,
would you add that to your? Please do.
Yeah, I would be happy to.
Yeah, and I have, Dwayne, some added materials around how to deploy, and there's a vital element we didn't talk about today that Mike speaks to in his book in Chapter 9 called the Advanced Group. And I've got some great material. If anyone wants to reach out to me via my email that Dwayne will share, I'll make sure that you get some of those materials.
So if you had any additional questions, please feel free to field those toward Beth. And Beth, as a matter of fact, since some people are going to be viewing this as a recording, would you mind just sharing your email address verbally, and then that'll be the best way to get it out?
Not a problem. That would be b.carrington, so b.carrington at w3groupllc.com. I can also be reached via our W3 Group website, and so if anyone has any questions or comments, there's a contact us on the W3 Group website, and that will also either via phone or via email, and those contacts will be directed my way. We also have a YouTube site, Dwayne, that has some of the great videos and materials, as well as there's the LinkedIn site for
Great.
W3 Group and others.
Great. Good. Well, I will point everyone to that as well in a summary email. But Beth, thank you so much, not only for facilitating our short session today, but thanks for your many contributions in seeing Kata deployed around the globe. So look for the recorded webinar. I will send out an email shortly, and you can feel free to submit that, to send that recorded webinar to those in your organization. So again, Beth, thank you, and thanks for everyone participating in today's session. Goodbye.
Thanks, Dwayne. Bye-bye.